Daniel here. Just so you know, during this episode, you're not going to hear any mention of the WGA SAG-AFTRA strike. That's because we recorded this probably in May. Everything was new then, and SAG-AFTRA hadn't joined the strike. So yeah, we still stand in solidarity with those two unions and hope that the struck studios return to the negotiation tables and do what's right. But just know that nothing's mentioned during this episode because it was recorded way in the past. Thank you. Enjoy.
Ladies and gentlemen, ATDF everything in that shelf presentation. You're now rocking with TDF everything. Spoiled rotten.
Spoiler alert.
Welcome and welcome back, everybody.
Hey.
It's me, Daniel,
And this is Ben
on Spoiled Rock.
on that shelf.
Boom. Well, everybody, you've probably read the title, but we are back with another cool guest, Victor Stiff. I do want to read your credentials. I do think this is important. Obviously, the news editor and senior critic at that shelf, but you are an accredited movie critic. You've been to TIFF, Sundance, South by Southwest, Comic-Con, Hot Docs, a whole bunch of places. You're part of the Toronto Film Critics Association. You're a very accomplished person, award-winning critic. So we're very, very honored to have you on the show. You did do our Mortal Kombat bonus episode. I'm very appreciative of that, but I'm glad you could be on an episode with me and Ben. This time around.
It was so much fun. I'm excited to be back. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. People listening are probably already waiting with bated breath to hear about your top 5 comic book characters.
My comic book characters skew kind of dark. So one of my all-time favorites, there's a lot of villains on my list. That's just how it is.
Perfect.
So in no particular order, Apocalypse is a really big one for me. In the late 90s, I read like a 4-part Apocalypse origin story about him in Egypt being the first mutant, and he it had me. Age of Apocalypse is one of my all-time favorite comic runs. So just love Apocalypse. He just elevates any X-Men story he's in. Likewise, Magneto is a big one for me. I love that push and pull of like he's doing terrible things, but sometimes it's for the right reasons. And that kind of, that Martin Luther King versus Malcolm X dichotomy. And again, going back to Age of Apocalypse, in an alternate timeline, he actually was leader of the X-Men, and that's one of my all-time favorite runs. So I have a soft spot for him. Another villain, Doctor Doom. Again, anything he shows up in, he just makes it so much better. And he wears a green cloak. You can't really top that. I love that his name's Victor, so a little bit of vanity there. So then to flip it, I really love the Beast, Hank McCoy. He's always been one of my favorites ever since I was a kid. There's something about his look and that kind of going from a man to an animal, and that conflict he had on top of being a mutant. It's just like he couldn't hide who he really was, and he was one of the smartest, kindest people, but he was also one of the ones that people were most disgusted by, right? And the way he kept his humanity, I always found that very moving. So Hank McCoy's on there, and then got to go super basic on this one, but Batman means a lot to me. Probably my favorite one is the Arkham series video games, that trilogy of Batman. It's perfect. The story, the action, the tone is just incredible. It's the only series I go back and play repeatedly. So Batman is like a big piece of my childhood, big piece of my adulthood.
That's awesome. You kind of zoomed through those, but I thoroughly enjoyed the inclusion of Magneto. He would definitely be on my top list if I ever shared one. Obviously Batman, I feel like everyone listening to this knows that about me, but I thoroughly enjoyed that list. And especially what you said about Beast in terms of his kindness, I think that was always what was striking to me, that obviously his name is Beast, but he always felt like one of the more warm, welcoming characters on the team, and it was just always interesting to read and also watch in the 90s show.
And I really appreciate the call to the Arkham series for the Batman there, the Kevin Conroy Batman, where
Yeah.
that video game series was. Every other video game series, you feel like you're controlling someone. There, you feel like you actually are, and that's amazing for a third-person kind of video game. It's just you are Batman, and that game is awesome. So I love that specific narrowing in on that Batman because it's great. It's everyone's Batman.
So yeah, great list.
Mm-hmm.
Really enjoyed it, and I'm glad we got a Apocalypse shout out. I feel like we weren't gonna get that. I'm glad you came through for Apocalypse there.
He had the coolest voice on the animated series. I was really
Yes.
disappointed when Oscar Isaac played him. It's just paled in comparison.
Yeah, that was a bummer. There's no doubt about it. It's truly a bummer of a movie and a use of that character. But
yeah,
we might be getting into another bummer because we gave you a list, and on purpose, these movies weren't great choices because we wanted to have very cool guests to elevate these movies that maybe we didn't feel as strongly about. But we are talking about Blade Trinity today, a movie that is famous for probably some bad reasons, but we'll try and just talk about the movie, and whatever comes up comes up.
I will say finding good things about this movie is like trying to ice skate uphill.
There we go. Perfect analogy for this.
I love that.
Everyone's always trying to skate uphill. So how did you feel revisiting it for this episode this time around?
It hurt my heart. The series means so much to me. I have my own special list of all-time letdown movies, which is just movies you watch the trailer, you hear about the casting, and just you spend like months just counting down the days till it comes out. Spawn was one of those movies that just broke my heart. The Dark Tower, those books were so incredible. Obi-Wan, the movie was nothing in comparison. The Obi-Wan series, just like the trailer looked incredible. It looked like the best Star Wars ever, and the show was just a total letdown for me. So Blade 3 may be at the top of my list because Blade 1 was just an awesome discovery. It was the first time where you really got a dark, gritty, R-rated, kick-ass action horror superhero movie. It really set the template for what a superhero movie could be. It's like the godfather of the next wave of superhero movies. Blade 2, I enjoyed it even more. Guillermo del Toro, one of my favorite directors, he stepped in and he just brought so much creativity and so much atmosphere and creative creatures and gore. And it's like, where do you go from here? And then this third one comes out, and I couldn't even convince myself I had a good time. I was walking out of the theater with my head held low. I haven't watched it since it came out in, what was it, 2004? So it was like watching it again for the first time. I had no recollection. I had wiped it from my mind, and it was like an all new experience. Might have enjoyed it like 5% more just because I had no expectations, but not a fun time.
Well, also thank you for sharing your biggest letdown list. That is, I feel like that's going to be our next wave of questions. Actually, that's a great list. Yeah, I don't think I had many expectations for this third one, but I do remember really liking the first two, and then obviously we revisited the first two, just the two of us, and I think that first one, like exactly what you said, like that first one really, like, I don't really think they promoted it like a superhero movie because obviously back then that wouldn't be a draw, but like, it really did. Like, you're like, okay, like this is what is capable, like this is what these movies can do, and I feel like that movie still holds up. Like, there's some silly things for the time, but like not because it's a comic book movie, but just because of the time it was made. There's some silly things in it, but I think it's a really strong movie. And then Blade 2 is more fun, I think, but I still think I like Blade 1 better. But as a Del Toro fan as well, I'm like, like Del Toro doing a superhero movie, this is great.
I think you're right that the undiscovered gem of the first Blade is such an important point, because to me it didn't. They're clearly in this era downplaying the superhero aspect of it, but it seemed to me, and it reads more as this is a Hong Kong action flick. You know what I mean? And it really hits home because during that era, you have like the Rush Hours, you have all those kind of movies that really are popping up, and they're like, yeah, this vibes with it, and we're telling a superhero story. This is awesome, and it's really serious. You get that complete escalation, Blade 2, and then this is you're like, well, we flopped the landing real bad.
Yeah, yeah. There's so I guess for people who don't know, this is the story of Blade versus Dracula. Is that
Wait. His name is
Supposedly.
Drake. His name is Drake.
Sorry.
Get it? Put some
Sorry.
respect on his name. I think we
Alright.
should only call him Drizzy from here on out.
Okay, sorry. Blade versus Drizzy. He's gone by many names. I used the wrong one. He's definitely Drizzy. From the guy from Prison Break. And
Dominic Purcell.
yes. And what's up? Oh yeah, and DC Legends of Tomorrow.
Yep.
It was interesting seeing him in like a more lively, youthful thing again. I was
Mhm.
like, oh right, yeah, good for him. Things to like. I guess I like seeing Parker Posey in things. I was not opposed to her being in this movie. I don't know if she really had a good time making it. I can't imagine she did, but she's there, and I'm happy about that.
Mhm.
Natasha Lyonne's in it, and I've just finished watching Poker Face, so I was like, oh great. And I think what I appreciated about that is, as much as anyone's doing a good job in this movie, I didn't feel like she was phoning it in necessarily with this like superhero talk and stuff. I felt like, I mean, she seems committed to it. She's playing a blind mother. That's good for her.
Yeah. She's, well, I mean, considering where she came from, American Pie, like, yeah, everyone's taking this movie seriously that wasn't coming from comedy, right? Like, even Ryan Reynolds and Jessica Biel are really taking it up into the action notch.
Well, I mean,
They're
yeah,
trying
Jessica
to.
Biel is certainly there.
She's certainly there, but
I don't know if they
yeah.
gave her a good like. I don't know. Maybe Victor, you feel different. My feeling is they didn't. They wrote her into a corner. I wasn't really.
Yeah.
I can't really be like, oh, she sucks. It's more just like they didn't really give her character a fair shake.
She was going for it. If you watch
Yeah.
her, she's
Mhm.
really trying to act tough. Just the way she walks, her body language, she's always kind of hulking and brutish. But yeah, there's
Yeah.
really they don't even give her a great line of dialogue. Like her thing is that she listens to MP3s, not
Right.
even
Yeah.
music, specifically MP3s, right? Like who says that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like that was the Cannibal King line. It was like she listens to MP3s. I'm like, why did they say it that way? And even some of them are like, there's errors on some of them, so she can't upload all of the ones she wants to listen to onto her iPod at one point.
I do like the idea of like there's this one scene where she gets so little dialogue where she delivers it with so much conviction where Hannibal King's like, I can't shoot around corners, and then she's like, I can, and it's this masterful moment where she pulls out the bow, and I'm like, this is so over the top cheesy, but she really doesn't want people to remember Seventh Heaven. Like she really wants this to be a launching point for her movie career. I'm like, good for her. She took it seriously.
Yeah.
I like that. But you're right. Her character, you're just like, oh, yeah, there's nothing to do here. There's just nothing to do for her. It sucks.
Considering she's Whistler's daughter, like you'd think
Yeah.
that you'd get a bit more. And I'm not saying these movies were big on emotion, but I did think that what the first two movies did really well was have that somewhat unspoken thing. I mean, they say it outright in this movie where Whistler's like, I consider you a son, but like we got that through the first two movies without them explicitly saying it. And just the idea that there's so many ways you can go with having Whistler's daughter enter, where like, does Blade feel like now he has to protect her as like a sister figure, or does he feel like threatened by someone else coming in who's actually blood to Whistler? And they just were like, it's just, I guess he won't kill her because she's Whistler's daughter.
Yeah, that's way too complicated for this movie. There was something about this movie I couldn't quite put my finger on it until the end, but it actually feels like a '90s movie. Like it can't be straight to video kind of '90s movie. It was almost like a parody you would see in Simpsons, where it didn't even seem like it was taking itself seriously at times. It was like just so cliche and so devoid of like any interest in anything. It just, I don't know. It seemed like a film out of time, even for 2004.
Yeah, because the issue is that and this we'll have to talk about the behind the scenes conflict and all that kind of stuff with this, but the whole thing to me is just like everyone's telling Blade what to do, and Blade doesn't have like an opinion or anything. Like the first scene that sets off the whole conflict of like why he needs to have the Night Stalkers is just Whistler being like, "I'm sorry, I got old on you. I can't do this forever, and you can't do it alone." And then that's about it. He's like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess I'll get some friends. And oh, here, they saved me. So cool. I'm just gonna go over here with them and just keep following the flow of how this movie's being written. It's weird because he's a sidekick in his own movie, which is his primary concern.
Right.
Wesley Snipes.
Yeah, Wesley Snipes' primary
100%.
concern was
Yeah.
you've made me a sidekick in my own movie. Which
Yep.
yeah.
Which you see this movie and you're like, yeah, valid. 100% valid. I remembered there being more Blade in this movie than there was. And I'm like, where's the Blade?
It's hard because it opens with Hannibal King narration, which
Yep.
I mean, initially, in this day and age, you're like, oh, it's Ryan Reynolds getting to do this thing. Like, I don't know. I guess I don't have a good memory of like what people's temperature on Ryan Reynolds was back then.
He was Van Wilder.
Van
Yeah,
Wilder,
Like,
baby.
Van Wilder, but like, were people happy with that, or were they like, oh, what's this? Why is Van Wilder trying to be an action hero?
I don't think there was a lot of expectation on him casted until they saw his shirt off in the trailer. And then everyone was like, oh, he took this seriously. And yeah, he of course he took this seriously. He's still getting paid a pretty penny for it. But you're right.
Yeah.
It opens with his narration back then, to your point, where he was relatively a nobody.
Well, he's certainly not Blade or Whistler. So you're like, why is this happening?
Yeah. And like, although the character of Hannibal has comic backstory relevant to Blade, I don't think like a lot of deep Blade lore people were like, oh, finally, Hannibal's going to get the spotlight now for once in a Blade movie. Like, what? No.
I mean, they throw in that line of dialogue about he used to be a vampire, and then they just kind of like yada yada that. Like, isn't that a really big thing that you can turn vampires back to people, and we're just going to breeze through that?
That is a big deal.
Yeah.
And like at one point, it's not even, there's no real tension, but at the end, like when Parker was like, I'm going to turn you back, I'm going to bite you, and you're like, who cares? Like, it's something that like they should have kept the pressure on with that when it first comes up. But I guess we're pointing out a bunch of things the movie just wasn't interested in.
I did like, however, Parker Posey's threat on him to torture him, to be like, hey, I'm going to bite you, I'm going to turn you, starve you, and then leave you in a room with this kid that you know and see what happens. Like, that is effective damn torture. I'm like, that was really, really great. The things I like was badass. That line. I did appreciate that line in this movie.
I do like that, but it like I feel like I would have felt the same effect if I didn't know he used to be I almost called him a Dracula. If I didn't know he was almost like already a vampire, I'd still be like, yeah, that would suck. It could just it didn't seem like rooted in any of history they had. Really, it was just like, I'm gonna do this.
Yeah, it just served to be one snippy line to be like, oh, Blade's gonna question, why are you hunting vampires? Oh, I used to be one. Cool. Yeah. We're not gonna question anything beyond that. It's like, so wait, you turned back human? Like, more explanation needed.
Yeah, like, why are we killing these people and not turning them back? Like, how hard is it?
Yes.
Yeah. The other thing that I thought was weird about Blade's characterization in this is, especially in the second movie with Norman Reedus, where the whole time he knew Norman Reedus was gonna double cross him, and he had a plan for that. In this movie, like, it's the beginning scene where he kills a human, and he's like, "Why aren't you dying?" I kind of wanted, even if the turn is like, oh wow, like he finally got one-upped, he just kind of goes like, damn, and like throws it away. It didn't feel like it mattered that much to him, and I was just like, oh, like this is a big deal, like considering last movie and showing how prepared he is for every situation. That he wouldn't be like a bit more thrown off by getting it wrong this time.
Well, I think he gets it wrong a lot because he kills a lot of familiars, right? And him and Whistler, even when the police show up to take them down, they're just killing cops left and right. Like, they have no qualms about killing non-vamps. So I don't know why, like, all of a sudden that one murder of that scumbag was a big deal.
Well, that's also a good point. The fact that like I mean, I guess I'm thinking for the movie's sake, like, oh, he thought it was a vampire, but he's wrong. He could have just been like, well, I'm killing a familiar because that's what I do, because I hate them as well.
Yeah. It's like and the vamps, it's like they have their tendrils in every aspect of society. So they probably already like they bought off the police commissioner. So it's like why
Mhm.
couldn't they just frame him anyway? They had to have Parker Posey up there with the camcorder filming.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
I don't,
Why did they? Yeah, if they already had media on their side, why did they need
yeah.
that? It was weird because it read into the idea of like, oh, Blade, this is what it's like to be with technology now, and it's just like, and he clearly being like, I don't want it. And I'm
Right,
like,
right.
all right, well, it's happening to you no matter what. So
You're gonna have to hang out with someone who uses MP3s later, so
yeah.
get used to it.
And here's the thing, I remember distinctly when this movie was being promoted, them being like, oh, Blade's facing all these threats of like the cops coming after him, and then the vampires coming after him too, and Dracula coming after him. And I'm like, okay, that's a cool premise. Except for the fact that like, oh, okay, the cops coming after him was just one prison break scene, and that was it. It
Yeah,
wasn't a
that's
continuous
over.
press on it. It was weird.
No, but
He's a black man in America who walks around with a sword. I'm sure the cops are coming after him all the time.
I
Well,
mean, yes,
yeah,
we talked about in the first movie how they kind of established
that
he's
rule doesn't
only
apply
black
here.
when the villains want to make a comment on it.
Yeah.
Like otherwise, he can beat cops up in the middle of the street and no one blinks an eye.
Yeah, which is what happens in the first one. He beats someone up in the middle of New York, a cop in the middle of New York, and I'm
That's
just like, no one's saying anything or
or
doing anything.
they shoot him and he's like, "Are you motherfuckers crazy?" And you're kind of like, "Well, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a bit early for this commentary, but no, not really. I think that was on purpose."
I do. I love how ineffective the cops are in every situation of this whole movie because they're like, okay, the whole prison break scene where they introduce Hannibal and um Jessica Biel's Whistler character. It's just really that's what was their exit strategy. They left through the front door.
Yeah,
Like genuinely, they left through the front door. I'm like, what are okay? There was a driver that got there late. There was no comms getting to the driver, but then all of a sudden the cops were there. There was a standoff, all these guns, and there was just I counted about 5 or 6 shots. There wasn't a barrage or anything like that. It was just 5 or 6 shots. I'm like, what is going on with these cops? Like,
they're about as effective as stormtroopers. They looked about as
Yes,
bumbling too.
yep,
I mean, I think that's what's good about the second movie that they kind of keep it somewhat underground, and it's like, well, it's
yes,
just like warring factions, and you don't have to worry about like the effectiveness of cops because it's just like, well, no, these people are coming to kill these people, and we can just deal with that. And I feel like they could have done that this time too. I don't know why they were so committed to this group of vampires that wanted to raise Drizzy from the dead being such a small group. Like, couldn't it just be like one of the vampire families was really like, we got Drizzy, we're gonna just go full force on this, and then that we can send waves of people that then I feel like then yeah, like you can have him be outed in the public, I guess. Or, I don't even really know, like that people liked Blade in the first place, but like
yeah.
then you can just have it be like, oh yeah, just every like a more John Wick style of like, oh no, we're just sending waves of like vampires at this guy all
Yeah.
movie.
So I was thinking that. And then what I realized was, oh, okay, they set up at the beginning of the movie or at the end of the second movie, he's hunted down the majority of the vampires. But then through dialogue through this entire movie, and I'm like, okay, that's why there's no vampire factions or gangs that are starting wars. He's broken them
Okay,
all up. That makes sense.
okay.
But then through the dialogue of this whole movie, they're like, the numbers are getting bigger. And I'm like, well, the factions clearly aren't gone. And there's industrialized, like, people farms, which is apparently what he wanted to do in the second one, but didn't get to put that image there.
Mm.
And I'm like, it's a cool image. That's stuck in my head for sure. The entire, like, since childhood, I'm like, that is actually frightening.
Yeah,
It's
there's no doubt
horrific.
about that.
But then there's that point with like, oh yeah, this cop that's in on it is just now going to explain everything. But I do like the part where Blade is like, they're going to kill me. And then he's like, I'm going to kill you, motherfucker. And I'm like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Everyone's going to kill you right now. You just might as well do whatever. It's
Yeah.
great.
Um. Yeah, I don't. It's kind of that a movie that, as you said, Victor, it's really hard. I'm trying to be positive. I don't want to be just completely negative. But it's there's a lot of disappointing avenues of like, oh, they didn't even try to follow up with this.
Yeah,
Mhm.
like a bad movie's fine. You can find a lot of joy in a bad movie, but a disappointing movie just breaks your heart because there's so much potential for it to be good, right? Like
Yep.
a campy movie is a movie that sucks, but it's trying hard. This
Mhm.
movie, you just get the impression it was just a first pass and no one is trying. There's no polish to anything. It just
Mhm.
nothing seems very thought through. And again, there was a lot of conflict on set, and I'm sure they had to deviate from the script a lot of the times, but
Mhm.
it's just that lack of effort that just makes it feel like a waste of their time and a waste of our time.
Mhm.
Yeah, because I think like reading about the second movie, not because he was being difficult, but just he had conflicting schedules. Wesley couldn't really be on set for every single scene, so there's a lot of body doubles
Mhm.
in the scenes, and you think about that and then you realize like that's still a movie people enjoy. Like that's it doesn't
Mhm.
feel like it's not something you notice right away that like they didn't have their star all the time. It was just like they found a way to work around it. Whereas it seems like he was on set the whole time. This time just didn't want to do anything. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean, I feel
there's
like I've said my opinions in the past. I don't know how you feel about it, but like it is what it is in terms of what they got. But it just feels like you'd think they would try harder to like make something that doesn't feel as lackluster.
well, I mean that it comes this comes down to a good segue to talk about the backstreet drama is the idea of, and this leads into like more further drama of what Wesley Snipes did. He actually sued the studio to be like, hey, this is you made this dishonestly with the intention of launching a Night Stalkers franchise and film. And I'm like, yeah, that's good. That's everyone's thinking that. That's because they're like the Hannibal narration closing it, and it just felt like, yeah, we're gonna send Blade off, and then we're gonna bankroll these young
Yeah,
talents.
it's unfortunate because
Mhm.
I think everyone knew going into it that Wesley Snipes was doing a great job of
Yes.
carrying this franchise,
Mhm.
and I know reading stuff like um, Guillermo del Toro saying like he trusted Wesley Snipes implicitly, that he
Mhm.
knew the character so well,
Mhm.
and so to try and remove him from from that seems like already a bad start.
Yeah,
Um,
and
but yeah, it's too bad because I'm not truly opposed to a movie about Blade actually having to work with a team instead of just biding his
Mhm.
time with a team until he can do what he really wants to do, like in the second one. Like to
Mhm.
actually take on a brother and sister figure in that sense, that would have been interesting. But then it really does feel like they're trying to ice him out and make it more about Hannibal. And I wish I knew Jessica Biel's character's name, but Whistler's daughter,
Abigail. Yeah.
Abigail.
Yeah.
Sorry, there we go. It's more about them, and that just seems like an awkward choice in a Blade movie.
Yeah. And then it also seems like an awkward choice to be like, wait, this is about the Night Stalkers. This movie kills like basically the majority of the members.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like Patton Oswalt's gone. Speak about a name that's like, oh, that's a big name that doesn't get any room to do anything with. They're just all dead. And I'm like, where's the spin-off plans here? Were
Yeah.
they where were they going? Was it just going to be Hannibal and Abigail? And that was it? That was the Night Stalkers going forward? Because
Well, I'm sure they would have picked up new people as the movie if they got a thing. But
I
yeah,
hope so. But I
I
mean,
think
like to kill off Patton Oswalt to be like, wait, you're gonna launch a franchise and you're gonna cast Patton Oswalt and you're not gonna use him going forward. What is going on? I don't understand. But
I mean, I gotta say, I don't think he was that big of a name back then.
no,
No, no,
but
no.
neither
He was
was Ryan
Ratatouille.
Reynolds. True. Yeah.
But that's like 2009, isn't it, or something?
2004.
Yeah, it
Oh,
was
Ratatouille
about the
is
Blade.
same time.
2004.
Yeah.
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 All right.
Blade is 04, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I can see a movie where it's kind of like the series Supernatural, where it's Reynolds and Abigail Whistler, and they're on the road and they're just going from like town to town,
Mm-hmm.
picking
Mm-hmm.
off, what creatures of the week. That'd be pretty cool. But this is just a film. Just every choice they make seems like the wrong choice, right? And I think the worst choice they make in this movie is your big bad Drizzy shows up, and what does he do? He runs for the hills. It's like
Mm-hmm.
screenwriting 101. How do you even justify the terrifying guy who's supposed to be a threat to the heroes turns
Mm-hmm.
and runs from the hero? Like I can't even come up with an excuse for why you would do something so stupid. Like,
Yeah.
who
How
Yeah.
signed off on that?
it is very, because yeah, I didn't think of him as a threat other than, you know, the final battle. He's got the like three-way mouth, and you're like,
Mhm.
I guess he's bigger than Blade, but it's not like I was worried for Blade up until this point.
No, it's the only threat Drizzy had was to the goth store kids at Hot Topic. That
Who
was
are
it.
eating Count Chocula cereal for some
Yeah.
reason at night.
Yeah,
Yeah,
degenerates. Those absolute degenerates.
that is a weird scene because I'm like, oh, like what's gonna happen with the woman that he bites, and it's just like, I guess it was just to show that he's gonna kill people.
I just to me it bothers me so much because I'm like, okay, they bring in the idea of the cops being a threat during the day and the vampires being a threat during the night, so Blade can't rest. I'm like, okay, that's genuinely cool. Then they have Drizzy show up and he can do both, and I'm like,
Yeah,
okay, that's
broad
cool.
daylight.
He's
like,
broad daylight,
rooftops.
just like, getting the inspiration for views, photo shooting. But the idea is just like, wait, he can do both, but he's never really a threat to anyone. Like, he's not even going like, oh, I'm gonna show these vampires how to feed and like, hunt again and not have to get their um blood Uber Eats over it. Like that's just like, that's where I thought they could go. No, he just sidelined the entire movie and just, except for some Hot Topic kids, that's about
I
it.
mean, he also he really bullied that baby, didn't he?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's true. He was
Yeah,
not nice to the baby.
that was the master plan: get in trouble, toss a baby.
Mm-hmm.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Blade sorted that out though, but yeah, it was just they, it's such an interesting choice because I feel like they did a well. Certainly, the second movie got into like the otherworldly, like the next step of a vampire, um, with more intrigue to it. And then this one was just like, we'll call him Drizzy, and people will be like, got it, I know what that is, but without any of the like charisma that is associated with that or
Yeah.
anything.
There's also this weird fixation on the sexualization nature of vampires. I'm like, yeah, we get it. Vampires have always been sexualized. They've always been sexy. Why is this academic nerd going on and on and on about it? Until, like, I don't get it. Like, why? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, he was really doing some kink shaming, wasn't he?
He was. He really, really was. And I'm like, you can either study it or be a part of it. All you got to do is just ask, bud. Consent is the first step. That's it.
Oh boy. Wait. Oh no. Okay, I was trying to think of how they dispose of Whistler, but it is off screen, right?
He blows himself up, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, he's like, go without me.
Yeah,
then-
I'll be your distraction thing, which he does in the first film.
Yeah.
because that was my memory. Is I guess I was remembering the first. Like I always remembered he dies with them taking the sheet off and he's all bloody. But I think, yeah, that's like the other movies, not this one. This
Yeah,
one
I'm
gets
like,
blown up.
the first movie you wrote him like his death off screen like that. I'm like, okay, you did what you did there. You brought him back, but
Well, he was
you can't.
kidnapped in the first movie. I just
And-
always remember it that they
But
make it
Blade,
seem like he's dead.
yeah, but Blade finds him, and then he's like, well, I'm not going to survive. You can't carry me. Give me a gun and let me take care of it. And
Oh no,
he walks away and
the
there's a
beginning
gunshot.
of Blade 2 is him finding where Whistler is.
Yes, and that's the part where I'm like, why are they doing this again to Whistler's character? Why are
Yeah.
they like? That's my point. I'm like, you're doing the same bit again. No one's going to believe he's dead.
I can't like. Did they just have like? It's Chris Christopherson, right? Did they just have like a week with him every movie, and then they're like, we got to figure out a way that he's like in it, but he can't be in it the whole time.
Yikes! How many scheduling issues do we know of in this? Well, I mean, like we said, Wesley Snipes was present. He just wasn't available during the shooting of this movie.
Yeah. This. I mean, not the first person to have issue with his director.
Yep.
I think we talked about Val Kilmer and Joel Schumacher
Yep.
being on similar terms of
Mhm.
only speaking through like post-it notes or whatever.
Yep.
But was Val Kilmer signing his post-it notes as Batman because Snipes was signing
I
them
hope
as
so.
Blade?
I
Yeah.
kind of hope so, but no, I doubt it. I wish he was. I would love that level of pettiness.
That's more
I,
of a Michael Keaton move to sign things. I
Yeah,
am Batman.
yeah. There we
oh
go.
God, 100%, 100%. If he speaks at your commencement or valedictorian, whatever, you better believe his sign off words are "I am
Listen, if it's
Batman."
for something good or something bad, he will be bringing up he's Batman.
Yeah, and he has
um,
every right to do so. It's great. It's so great. I
yeah.
love it.
But yeah, yeah. There's, I guess, the self-fulfilling prophecy of like they already were trying to write Blade out of the movie, but then
Mm-hmm.
he wasn't really present, so like they still had to work around him anyway. So it's like I believe even if he was present and willing to play ball,
Yeah.
it would have been similarly like iced out of the movie. So
Right. So, and this is the challenge apparently Goyer actually threatened him with that information at one point. It's like, you can go. We don't need you anymore. Like, we've got your close-ups. We can shoot around you. We've been doing it for a while. You can go. And then apparently he just like played nice for about a week and then just did his thing again. But I'm like, I get where he's coming from. This Wesley Snipes he was so attached to first Black Panther, and he's clearly doing something for Black empowerment in the movie space and all that kind of stuff, which I love. And then this gets taken away from him for two white actors that are just like, wait, you're using my third movie to launch, and then you're writing me out of the franchise. Because at that point too, there was like a lot of interviews with both Ryan Reynolds and Beale being like, yeah, we signed on to do this and a Night Stalkers movie with no Blade 4. And I'm like, yikes. That's very telling. That sucks.
yeah,
I get why he
obviously,
would be that petty.
yeah,
Yeah.
obviously people talk about being professional or whatever, but I'm just like,
Mhm.
I understand the frustration and the feeling of for lack of a better term, like impotence. If you're like, look, we're only doing a third movie basically because of me and what I bring to the table and like people wanting to watch these movies. Like, like yeah, like I think people genuinely excited about Blade in these movies.
Yes.
Not necessarily like it wasn't like they're like, oh, they've got this sick villain coming, or like what's. It was just like, yeah, it's gonna be Blade again. Like that's what people are coming for,
Mhm.
which is a big deal, I believe. I guess now when people talk about not having stars anymore and people just want the IP, I don't think ever anyone was thinking of like Blade as like IP in that sense. They were like, yeah, it's like a Wesley Snipes is the vampire killer guy again.
Mhm.
And I understand the frustration of that. And if you got to be there, maybe not wanting to make it comfortable for anyone else.
Yeah, if you look at it from the perspective of a Black Star in 2004, right?
Mhm.
They're never going to cast Wesley Snipes in the Superman reboot. He's never going to be Batman. He's not going to
Mhm.
be the Terminator or Rambo. He took a character that no one gave a damn about, like not even a B-list character, like a
Mhm.
C or D-list character, and he made it like a big major brand.
Mhm.
And then still they're trying to wrestle it away from him. And it's easy to make him look like a egotistical lunatic, but at the same
Mhm.
time, when he sued the studio, he was saying that he was actually cut out of a lot of the casting process and
Mhm.
some of the hirings that he was entitled to as an executive producer. So,
Mhm.
I can understand someone being difficult, right? It's easy to
Yeah,
paint him as just the asshole, but there's two sides to this as well.
Yeah,
I 100% agree.
yeah, I'm all on Wesley Snipes' side of this. It's just complete nonsense what they did going into this, and they're like, oh, we could, because they threatened to recast him for this. They're like, well, studio's going ahead with this. It's whether or not you want to be there at this point. And then yeah, I'm like, I would make the same. Yeah, I'll be there. I'm just not making it pleasant for anyone. I'm like,
Yeah. Well, just because I think I'm pretty sure like he can do a lot of the physicality of it. Like he can do some of the martial arts. So like you're not gonna
yeah.
get a bunch of well liked at the time Black actors that can do what he does. So he is bringing something to it other than just his name. Like he can he could. I mean, obviously the first Blade isn't like this big budget movie. Like I think it works because he can actually do a bunch of the stuff. If I mean, I'm sure not all of it, but still he can do a bunch of it. And so he's giving you the physicality as well as his star power for it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And
we're on the same page in terms
but
of like understanding his frustration.
The other thing to highlight of this too is probably one of the only other black actors of that era that would have been able to play this physicality and all this kind of stuff, because he brings his legit martial arts to this, right? That's the most authentic aspect about Blade that I love about it. Like you put in like the idea of Hong Kong action movie. I'm like, yeah, Wesley Snipes pulls that off. Michael Jai White could pull that off, but guess what? Spawn flopped earlier that year, so they're not going to be able to get like, hey, we can get my. So I feel like he just didn't call the studio to be like, hey, no, you can't get anyone else.
And also, Michael Jai White is nowhere near Wesley Snipes in terms of star power.
No, 100%. No, nowhere close to it. But I'm like, that's what I mean is like, he had the market there of like, what other black actors could you get to do this role right now that isn't already attached to another property? Just he could have negotiated a little bit better, but I don't know. Knowing the studios, they clearly were willing to go ahead regardless and push something out.
Yeah.
Because the commercial success of the first one, what was the budget? Like the first one was done on like 45 million. It raked in over 150 million. It was a low budget to make, and that's why they were like immediately greenlit second. And then the second did even better. And then the third, they're like, yeah, no, I see what you're trying to do. You're trying to wrestle this away from me because you it's not a fluke for the first time.
Right.
Yeah.
He proved he had something. I don't know. Like this is so simple. Like what else is there to talk about in this movie that's not just bashing it?
Oh, there's going to be a real long pause thinking of this one.
Fair.
You know what? There was one scene. There was one scene I legit liked, and it was the Drizzy chase. When he's trying to get away from Blade and he goes to jump through like a glass door, and you really see him brace himself like he's afraid to go through the glass door, and then he's running some more, and then he decides he's going to start running straight through doors, and he's not bracing anymore, and then you see him and he's just like busting through walls like the Kool-Aid man. I don't know. I feel like I could watch that scene on a loop. It just watching.
I mean, at least it feels like they were trying to do some sort of storytelling through the action of like, look, he's getting used to his body, he's getting used to stuff, and he's like that. That is strong. It's just connected to a bunch of other weird decisions around Drizzy.
Yeah, because like none of the action was good. Like these movies are action horror. This was the only film in the trilogy that's not a horror movie, right? Like it didn't have any like really scary, tense scenes. It was more of a straight up action flick.
Straight up action to me, yeah.
And then it was the like Hot Topic scene was supposed to be scary. It isn't, but like I thought maybe they were like oh right, yeah, maybe we should try and do something there, but it doesn't really play out that way because they go for like laughs until it's not.
There's no horror tension at all, and then the action is just not good. Maybe that's why the chase scene stood out, is because it's edited like, I don't know, like 1,000 cuts a minute. It's even though you have this master martial artist in Wesley Snipes, they're not really letting him cook, right? They're just cutting everything to death. So it's all chaotic energy, and you can't really appreciate any of the action movie thrills. So it's like it's not working as a horror movie, it's not working as an action movie. What are you left with?
It's this movie. It's unfortunate. Like this unfortunate thing.
It's what this early 2000 era is a weird spot in this kind of movie making, because it's the death of the 90s film, the death of the 90s action film around this era, right? But it's just, this is, for better or worse, one of the swan signs going into the early 2000s, were before the digital aspect of everything really took over what action movies could be. Like this was still grounded enough, had to be, back in the 90s, because when Blade originally existed, but couldn't fully launch off into the Spider-Man heights and all that kind of stuff, and Spider-Man not being fully released yet or all that kind of stuff. But it still needed, it felt dated when it came out. That was an issue. I'm like, wait, this feels like an early 90s Hong Kong action film, and that without enough action.
That
sucked.
They definitely needed more of Blade being able to like fight.
Just need more Blade.
Yeah, you need more Blade. I should have ended the sentence there. Need more Blade. But I mean, even again, I would have been down to watch him like embrace these new friends. That like, it just seems like that would be an interesting story to shift from the like the solo act of, yeah, I've got Whistler at home, but like actually being in the field with people who can keep up with him or could possibly, and just like the interesting avenues you could go with the character of like, oh, like I guess they can do this too or whatever. Like it's still, there's tension there. There's like just interesting moments for kind of comedy, and it's awkward because there's a bunch of Ryan Reynolds like throwing anything at the wall in terms of trying to get it, and I get that the joke is Blade wouldn't laugh at these anyway, but when you know that also he didn't want to, like Wesley Snipes didn't want to talk to Ryan Reynolds, it also just comes off as awkward to watch it now, because you're just like, like how much of that was him trying stuff, or like did they just have to just film him on different days on like just do his sides so that it wasn't this awkward thing of them actually being in a room and Wesley Snipes giving him 0.
Yeah. Don't know. It's real hard because he just does nothing the entire movie.
Yeah, I mean, this film has one interesting idea. They're working on like a cure that will kill all the vampires, right? And somebody asks Blade, it's like, if all the vampires are gone, what are you going to do now? And that's something the film could have wrestled with. It's like, I'm just this killing machine. I'm a shark. I exist to feed or to kill and kill again. And you could see him maybe like coming to the realization, like, who am I really? I've been defined in this very limited role. Who am I as a person? And by like throwing him in there with the vampire hunters, that can kind of eventually bring it out of him. Like there's some depth so that it could be funny, they could be chums, they could be adversaries, it could be competitive, it could be fatherly, but like you could actually do some interesting things with that in the film. Just as soon as they say it, they just let it fly off in the wind.
Yeah, because it is a very interesting premise, because he just stumbles upon this accidental things like, oh, y'all are working on something to completely eliminate the problem. Okay, cool. I'm going to stumble onto this. I'm going to help. I'm like, okay, now actually you're right. Wrestle with the idea of retirement. What does your life look like now that you're no longer hunting vampires? There's no prey anymore. What do you do? That's a great question. And the only thing it comes down to is, train the next generation. But it gets boiled down to one scene where Jessica Biel's losing her shit because her best friend got killed, and he's just standing behind her saying, use it.
Yeah.
Twice. Use it. And I'm like, that's the training. That's what you imparted onto them. Use it. Okay. Great.
It's definitely disappointing that they just we know practically unable to get him to show warmth to these characters, but like to engage in any way, like with any type of like, even if the character is written to hate them, he's not even giving that. Like it's just 0.
But it's interesting because he does show warmth when he's killing. Like you see him like smirking and having fun.
Yeah.
It's the only time he shows any personality. Yeah.
That's what I like about him throughout the movies, is that like we always talk about like either you're showing your character do something well or showing that your character enjoys doing something, and like he does like fist pumps in other movies, and like he smiles in this movie as well, like as you said, when he's killing people, and it's like, okay, yeah, like that's the Blade that we like, that like he's kind of closed off, except for when he's exactly what both of you have brought up, is his whole reason for being is the stuff that makes him smile and do the fist pumps. He's having fun killing these vampires, and then what's left for you after you've created this solution that kills all of them? Like, that is such an interesting thing to get at, is like, like what happens to the guy that can only smile or like really get lively when he's killing vampires, when there's no more vampires left to kill?
Like, that's, like, give us something. Give us a Blade post-retirement with a kid or something like that. Show us that his trauma can fully heal, and they can move on and have a normal life. Because he's, at the end of the movie, he is just human. But they're like, no, he's still off on the hunt. And this is the weird part. With a Ryan Reynolds narration of like, oh, he drifted off, we couldn't find him or whatever. And I'm like, wait, what?
He went back to his home planet.
He's right there. And like, what happened? You guys watched him toward the end of the fight. It's not like he disappeared. You watched him.
No. He went away.
He just,
Ben, don't be silly.
What? It's such a weird narration.
And Abigail and Hannibal are the only ones left to do anything.
Oh my god!
He just went back to his home
to do
planet.
Anything against no one because their plan was successful. I'm like, what is happening here? I don't get it. You can't take the hunter out of him apparently, but then there's nothing left to hunt. And they
So,
didn't.
question for both of you then. What's the over under on a Snipes cameo in the upcoming Blade movie?
Ooh, good question.
I'm hoping there is one if this movie actually gets made. Like I know they're gonna make it, but it just keeps getting pushed back, and it's a bummer. But I'm hoping over under, huh? I mean, I actually think it's just gonna be something where like his name is somewhere. Like there's a street named Snipes or something like that. I don't think they're gonna bring him into it.
You don't think in like a multiverse or Secret Wars they'll bring in old school Blade?
I do.
That's a very possible thing.
But I think in the actual Blade movie, it'll just be something like, oh, a street's named after him or something like that.
Or
there's like an author with the last name Snipes or something like that, where he's like, oh, you got to read this book to know about vampires.
He's known as a difficult author and a recluse.
Yes, exactly.
Or have they announced the full cast list yet?
I think that's they have announced the cast, but I don't know how
they haven't.
How many of those people will be back once they actually start?
Right. Yeah. But my point is, have they announced who Whistler is? Because if they casted him as Whistler, that'd be like, that's kind of funny. I don't think he would ever do it, but like,
I don't.
Plus, it would not be good casting for Whistler, but it'd be kind of funny.
I don't know if Whistler's gonna be in this because everything that they say about this movie is that it's like set in the 40s. So my assumption is if you want to do Whistler, you would do it like in present day, like whenever they catch up to present day with Blade.
Maybe it could be like Grandpa Whistler.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. That's a good question. He might play a villain. What if he plays a villain?
The first person Blade has to kill.
Oh,
just get him out of the way. It's like no.
What if Wesley Snipes plays Dracula?
That would be dope.
That would be amazing, right?
I would be down with that.
Yeah, I think that would be good.
I would be 100% on board with that.
But yeah, I honestly don't know. I'm pretty sure he would sign on to it, and this is just based on the fact that he got hit with the tax evasion thing after Blade, and then his career went basically direct to DVD after that for a long time. And this is a good, like when people think about Snipes, this is a good thing attached to it. So I think there's a good likelihood that he's going to show up. If depending on what capacity, I don't know, because to me, if they could get Hugh Jackman back as Wolverine, there's a good chance that they could get Snipes back in some capacity.
I think they could get him back for Secret Wars. I just don't know about the actual Blade movie.
No, but I just don't know if he's going to be playing Blade or just involved in it. I just think involved in would be like he's playing some other character.
I'm pretty sure he played Blade in What We Do in the Shadows, the TV show.
Oh, that's right.
Did he really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he couldn't get his Wi-Fi to work.
It's like literally they have this council of vampires, and it's like literally every actor you would associate with something to do with vampires. Like there's like True Blood people, there's a bunch of people. I think Tilda Swinton's in it. Like it's just like
I love
here are all the actors that you've ever associated with vampires, and I mean, it is Wesley Snipes. So he's not actually there. I think he's on TV. Right. He's like on a computer screen, but he is there.
That's awesome. That's really funny. Because I love that show. I gotta rewatch it again. I just love the episode where like, what's his face has to plan the orgy, and he screwed it up last time, so they're giving a shit about it. Like this is so good. This is so damn good. Yeah, but we will see.
We can hope that he's involved because he's owed one last go at it. I feel like to put it to bed properly.
What if they just used Wesley Snipes as the aged up version of Blade? Wait, Blade's thing is he wouldn't age because of the vampire thing, right? Yeah, okay, that doesn't make sense either. I'm just thinking, how could they involve him in some capacity, without doing like what they did with the Cavill Superman, where it's like, they put Reeves in for a frame during the flight thing and all that kind of stuff. That was the Easter egg.
Yeah, I mean, Marvel's all about their multiverse right now, so I'm sure they'll figure it out.
It's too perfect.
It won't be that hard for them to get it done. as I said, that's the perfect thing for Secret Wars is just pull him out from
You're
his
absolutely right.
universe.
You're absolutely right.
Well, since we're not gonna wait, I will ask: did anyone like the music, or was that another letdown?
It was
Ooh,
whack. It
Yeah,
was whack.
the RZA song at the end, I was just like, oh no, this
Yeah.
yeah,
this is a real letdown from Blade 2's soundtrack, which I unironically liked the Blade 2 soundtrack.
yeah. The soundtrack is pick a lane. What is happening here? Because Ryan Reynolds, like, what was the music? Trip hop, and was it? What was the other kind of acid funk or something like that that she was
I don't
listening?
know.
I don't know. With those
Uh,
MP3s that didn't even upload properly,
no, yeah. It's
and
hard to
that
say what
she
actually worked on that one.
loved the old school. Like, oh yeah, there has to be a string or the cable attached to the iPod. Yeah, there's no Bluetooth wireless.
No,
It's great. It's like watching
no
a movie where they have
AirPods.
to roll down the windows of the car. It's good times.
Um, okay, well, I tried, but it looks like we are just going to be asking you, Victor. Well, what would you give this movie out of 10?
Oh man, I can't go higher than a. Can we do 0.5s? Three and a
Oh yeah,
half.
we can do point
Yeah.
fives for sure.
Three and a half.
Any particular reason, or just what we said makes sense?
I use a metric after I see a movie. Would I tell myself if I could go back in time? Would I tell myself watch it or spend the 2 hours otherwise? So anytime I say no, you're better off just not seeing that movie. It's got to be a four at least.
Okay,
And I take off an extra 0.5 just for breaking my heart because I was so excited for it.
I'm so glad I asked you to to explain that. That is a great way to rate movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3.5. I mean, I'm going 3. So there's that. I genuinely really did not feel anything while watching it, other than what a bummer considering the first two movies.
Yep. Yep. I'm going to 3 as well. Just to be cute right now.
There we go.
But it does not deserve anything higher than a 5 for sure. And
No,
like,
no.
well, how badly it
It's not
flops is
half
really
good.
debatable.
No,
No.
it's not half good. It's just they have that strong scene of Drizzy running through walls, and I mean I liked seeing Blade light up when he was beating up bad guys, but there's not enough of it, and it's just not a good movie. So
No, no.
there we
And
are.
and I don't know if this is the reason why Triple H's career in film never launched off either. But you know,
this would be a hard sell if you were like, hey, you should put this guy in more movies.
hey, Triple H is in this. Yeah, it's just like, wait, what? He doesn't even get a shirtless scene in this.
No.
Everyone gets a shirtless scene in these movies.
He should have got a shirtless scene,
I'm like,
or
what?
been more interesting.
Yep, they didn't get. He didn't get to do anything. But
Victor, thank you so much for doing this. I did forget to mention your YouTube channel, which I'm a big fan of.
Thanks.
I know you were doing Dope Black Movies, and I think you got UFO Film Club. Sorry, I don't
Yeah,
want
UFO Movie Club.
Movie Club. Sorry, I didn't want to misquote that. But yeah, I thoroughly look forward to new posts on there. And what else what can you share with people? This will be out sometime in August.
Sure. Well, I'm programming for the film festival Rendezvous with Madness, which deals with addiction and mental health issues. So, our festival is going to run late October, early November. I'm also just trying something new and doing a series of 60-second reviews, putting them up on YouTube Shorts, TikToks. I'm probably going to start putting some on that shelf. So just, quick hits of movies like The Boogeyman and Cross the Spider-Verse. Just,
Nice.
something, give you a quick light hit of what to expect without getting too deep. And
I thoroughly enjoyed that. Yeah. That's awesome. Sorry to cut you off. You can keep going.
No, that's it.
And I'll link your social media and your site and your YouTube page in the show notes and everything, because I think it's definitely a worthwhile channel to take a look at. It's such for me specifically, the Dope Black Movies was such a great idea that if anyone sees it for the first time, they're in for a treat. So it's great.
Thanks.
Yeah, as a podcast, are part of the That Shelf Podcast Network with other great shows like Bad Gay Movies, Contra Zoom Pod, Springfield
Googleplex.
Thank you for the help. I'll remember it one day. Don't worry. And other great shows. So please, thatshelf.com. You'll find our show, those shows, more shows. You'll find Victor's writing, your interviews as well. And if you want to hear older episodes of our show, you can go to tdfeverything.com/spoiledrotten. Our email is spoiledpodcast@gmail.com. Our Twitter and Instagram is @tdsspoiled. We're on all the podcast platforms, so please rate, review, subscribe, share with your friends, follow, do all that good stuff. Get the word out. And yeah, we'll be back next week. Thank you very much, everybody.
Cheers.
This has been a TDF Everything production, brah.